Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living With Us. I'm Sharon Mundy, and we are at the 11th floor at Park Inn by Radisson. Today's conversation is about your blood pressure, high blood pressure, which is something that's been growing, not just in Kenya, but around the world, in concern and how it's affecting our daily lives. Now, we've got two guests, one of whom has been crowned the blood pressure champion. I'm curious to know why. His name is Zablon Orina. And we've also got an intervention cardiology consultant, Dr. Dr. Mohsen Gabala. Welcome. How are you both doing?
Thank you very much.
I would ask what your blood pressure is, but we don't know yet, but we will test at some point, right? To just check everyone's and make sure that we're good. So of course, I've got to start by asking how you, Zablon, got crowned the blood pressure champion. How did you get that title?
Okay, I'm the blood pressure champion because currently I'm driving a campaign to ensure that every Kenyan gets to know their blood pressure. So it is something I started way back in 2015, but now I've increased the speed, and by end of this year, we are going to change the country because we want to run a marathon that will touch people to the world level. Yes.
So how many people had you gotten to by this time, from 2015 to date? How many people have you been able to?
I don't have an exact number, but from what we've done, there are thousands of people. But it's not enough because the country is quite big. If we continue at this rate, it will take us another 100 years to get everyone. That's why now I decided, let's run a campaign so that everybody makes a decision to check their blood pressure the way they check their tire pressures without being compelled by anyone.
So tell me a little bit about your background. Maybe we could start with you, Dr. Mohsen. What drew you to the world of medicine?
Well, I'm Mohsen Gabala. I'm an interventional cardiology consultant. I joined MP Shah Hospital last February this year. Before that, I've been working in England for 12 years. And before England, I was in Canada for 3 years and in US. My medical degree was taken from Sweden.
Okay. Were you always interested in medicine?
Well, it started when I was in the high school because there was a lot of friends that were a little bit older than me, and most of them, they joined the medical school.
Yeah.
So I was going to join medical school in Egypt, but then we moved to Sweden, and I had the wish and the dream at that time to join the medical school and to do something different.
Okay. Zablon, I know you've worked in the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. Was that always of interest to you at a young age, from a young age?
No, of course, my aspirations when growing up, I wanted to be a doctor like him. Okay. But then I missed a few points, so I went to the next available science subject, which was biochemistry. Yeah. So that background gave me the knowledge that I needed to work in the pharma industry. So that's how I landed in the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay, and what were you doing in
what we do, I'm a medical representative. So we visit the doctors and we talk about our products. So we sell, but not directly, because we discuss science with the doctors. So we are the ones who offer the solution to the problems that the doctors find. So if a doctor finds you have this kind of problem, the drug will come from the pharma industry. Of course, so we drive our pharma agenda to the doctor.
Yeah. So what happened in 2015 that made you want to start this campaign?
Okay, I received a call from Eldoret in 2013.
From
Eldoret.
Okay.
From a doctor telling me that my brother had end-stage renal disease, that is kidney failure. That quite shocked me because I understood what it meant. So I brought my brother to Nairobi with his failed kidneys, got him admitted in hospital, spent $500,000 that week, and then after that, from my pocket, after that, I started paying for his dialysis twice every week, which then used to cost me 9,000 per session, making up to 18,000 every week, which I did for 1.5 years. For a young man, that was very expensive. His kidney failure was caused by high blood pressure. So I sat back and said, I know about high blood pressure. If we had picked this hypertension early, then we would have fixed it. We would not get to this. So despite that sacrifice, my brother still died. So I really don't want any other Kenyan to get to that level, either financially or health-wise, because of a condition, pressure that you can check and bring it down if it's high. Yes, that is what is driving me. That's my passion.
Wow. I can only imagine the kind of fire
Yes,
that burns
yes,
in you
it
to
has
make sure.
refused to die.
Yeah.
To not die.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Dr. Mosa, maybe you could share with us what high blood pressure is, what it means, how regularly we should be checked, just the basics on it, and how it could affect us.
Well, the high blood pressure is one of the disease. Actually, it's called by some doctors the silent killer, because when you have high blood pressure, you don't have any symptoms. Even the myth that everybody who has headache that he has high blood pressure is not even true, because blood pressure does not cause headache. So blood pressure per se, disease without any complication, has no symptoms at all. So the only thing is that it will be discovered when you come for routine examination, like even for something else. If you want to have any pills or coming to the doctor and he check blood pressure as a routine, and then he will find it that it is higher than normal level. So we can say that everybody has his own blood pressure, and it varies when we are sitting at rest, not under stress, or when we are sleeping, or when we walking. So the blood pressure has to go up and to come down sometimes. During activity, it always goes up. During rest, it always go down. Generally, we have empirical value 120/80. So there's always two different blood pressure: the upper blood pressure, which is systolic blood pressure, and the lower blood pressure, which is diastolic blood pressure. So the systolic, this is the first wave. When the heart to contract, it will eject all the blood out in the whole body, and then we will measure the first click or the first pressure, which is systolic pressure. And then the blood pressure stays even through the whole cycle at one level. So it comes down to 80, it never comes to 0, because even the diastolic blood pressure, it's needed to give blood to the heart, to other organs in the body. So there are always two numbers. So if you have the upper number, if it's too high, it will be systolic hypertension, or it will be called hypertension. Even the lower pressure, if it's above the normal limit, it still will be diastolic hypertension. So either both numbers, both figures, they should remain within a range.
Okay.
If they exceed the range, it will be hypertension.
Right. Okay. And we'll talk about the range in a bit. I'm curious, Zablon, in your campaign, how many people that you've spoken to were aware of, the need to have their blood pressure checked? Is there
unfortunately, and the more reason I'm not giving up, most of the people have never checked their blood pressure, unfortunately. And as the doctor has mentioned, it does not have signs. So the first sign could be that heart attack or that stroke or the kidney failure. So you find yourself either dead or in the ICU, and that is a sign, first sign. That's why it's very critical that every Kenyan, every person generally, gets to know their blood pressure.
Do they know what it is when you mention blood pressure?
The information
generally?
Information is not. Most people don't know much about it.
Okay.
And probably that's why they wait for the headaches to come before they go to hospital.
And check.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. But also, if you don't have any symptoms, it almost feels a little
Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
You know tires.
Yes.
Tire pressure.
Yeah.
When it's low, how do you know it's low? It's flat. You can see with your eyes.
Yeah.
When it's high, you cannot tell.
Yeah.
A tire burst could be the first sign that, that it is high.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, even in low blood pressure, in many cases, we'll present with signs like fainting or dizziness, but high blood pressure will not. You will continue operating normally until that catastrophe hits.
Right. Dr. Musan, how many people come into your practice with high blood pressure as a problem?
Well, I tend to see the people who when the complication starts. So
Okay.
I have very few that we found out that they have high blood pressure without any symptoms.
And did they come in
They come
for
in by
regular checkup?
Exactly. Yeah. If they
Okay.
come by wellness check or they
Okay.
want to check their health, so we found out that they have high blood pressure. So I will follow them up and I will start treatment. But most of my clinic, because they have, because I'm a cardiologist, so they have heart disease, so it's already become complication of the high blood pressure. So it's even more responsibility to lower the blood pressure even more, to treat the complication. It could be heart failure, it could be heart attack, it could be angina, atherosclerosis. It's a lot of disease that can happen. And as he mentioned as well, kidney problem. So even kidney disease, they cause high blood pressure, and high blood pressure will make the kidney function even worse. So it will become like a vicious circle, and we have to stop that at one point, and we start the treatment.
So you've been practicing cardiology for 20 years, is that
Yeah.
right? So in the 20 years, what kind of changes have you witnessed when it comes to high blood pressure?
Well,
patients?
the thing, if we can see throughout the last 20 years, when we have more technology, and the technology makes us more comfortable, so we don't do enough exercise, so we have everything. In the old times, we used to go and wait over to the phone booth to make a call, but now we have our mobile phone in our hand. The TV, we have to go and put it on, but now we have the remote control. And the archive, even at work, people used to go to the archive to get a file. Now every file is on the computer. So definitely exercise has come worse and less because we are getting more busy. So exercise is one of the most important factors that will fight against high blood pressure. So we know that if you sedentary life, if you don't do exercise, you are more prone to develop hypertension compared to a physical person who does exercise on a regular basis. Then we have the other problem, which is obesity, and obesity has increased. We have food court, we have a lot of restaurant, Kentucky, McDonald's, all these things, which will put a lot of burden on our blood vessels, on our heart, because of the high cholesterol, the atherosclerosis, and it will predispose to hypertension. Then we have other problem in Kenya that unfortunately the Kenyan, the African American in Kenya, they have higher genetic predisposition to have hypertension compared to European.
Why is that?
It's the genes. We don't
Wow.
know, but it's a genetic. Even we don't have a lot of obesity in Kenya compared to Europe now, or even US.
Yeah.
They started
But that's
with
lifestyle, that's not genetics, is
well,
it?
that's a lifestyle, and we don't know the genes because the genes actually get affected by the lifestyle over many
Right,
years.
of course.
So
Yeah.
actually, to add on what is just said, the genes are not a condemnation that you will have high blood pressure. So even if you are genetically predisposed, there are changes in lifestyle that you can make so that you avoid having high blood pressure.
Yeah, which we'll get to in a second. How prevalent is high blood pressure when it comes to other autoimmune diseases or just diseases that are affecting and killing people today?
I would say it is one of the highest. If we look at certain hospital in MP Shah, most of the people coming to casualty, I would say 70% of them, they have high blood pressure. 70% of the people coming to casualty. But we know, if you have to remember that those patients actually coming to the hospital, so they are not coming to have wellness check or to have to check up. So they are coming because of some disease of others. They're coming for headache, asthma, and all this. We found that high blood pressure is very prevalent in those group. If we look at the general population, I would say that it is one of the highest cardiovascular disease, hypertension among patients in Kenya in general.
Hypertension.
Hypertension
Is one of the biggest.
cardiovascular disease. If we call it like cardiovascular, that's a disease of the heart and the blood vessels.
Whew, with all this talk, I feel like we need to have a quick measure, but we've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll measure and get to also explore a little bit about that range that you talked about. That's the safe range. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. So we are at Park Inn by Radisson. Today's conversation is about high blood pressure. I've got Zablon, who is the blood pressure champion, and I've got Dr. Mawson with me. And I'm about to have my blood pressure checked. And let's hope it's good news, because I don't know how we're going to go after this if it doesn't work. Might as well just see, put it to test, and then we can start talking about the numbers and dive deep into what they mean, the ranges and everything. So,
Okay, so
where do you want me?
no, you can
I
sit
can
down.
sit? Okay. All right.
So if you can do that here, and then you put your arm here.
Oh. Oh, this, okay. There we go.
So we have to get the balloon here.
Oh,
So normally you should rest at least for 5 minutes, but we can take it now and we'll see.
oh yeah, we can keep talking
Yeah.
for 5 minutes
Okay.
as it does its thing. and we pursue we go, oh, okay, it's getting tighter. All right. So we'll wait 5 minutes. Do you want to time it, or it's fine? Yeah, it's fine? Yeah. Okay, we'll wait 5 minutes and then get back to this. So there's a statistic that we came across that we found quite interesting, and that is about 56% of Kenyans have never been measured for their blood pressure. Has that been your your findings as you go around
That's actually
your campaign?
Those are results from the Ministry of Health,
Yeah.
according to the Ministry of Health.
Yeah.
That more than 56%, actually more than.
It's
56,
more,
more
yeah,
than,
it's
yes.
more than 56.
I've never had their blood pressure checked. When I move around, almost every person I ask if they've ever had their blood pressure checked says no. Yes. So that almost confirms what the ministry has put across.
Yeah. And when you ask why, what has been the response so far?
It's because they don't have information. As long as you don't believe that high blood pressure will not present with symptoms, then you will not find a need to check it. So most of these people who not check their blood pressure actually are men, because men hardly go to hospitals. Most ladies of childbearing age have had a chance to have their blood pressure checked at the normal trials sessions. So for the men, they are waiting for the signs to come. And,
Wow.
and in many cases, the first sign is a stroke or a heart attack or kidney failure. Yes.
And we both know at that point,
Yes,
it's
yes.
a lot tougher to.
It's one thing that I really
deal
want to put across is the fact that in many cases, once your heart or kidney or is damaged, you may not be able to reverse it. So if you have kidney failure, that is kidney failure, and you're going to need a transplant or dialysis to replace that function. If you have heart failure, you've had a heart attack, then it means part of that heart has died if you are alive, and it means that your life has totally changed. It will not be the same again. So if you have a chance to check your blood pressure and bring it down, do it now.
Do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
At least you're resting for another 5 or 10 minutes, but your blood pressure is completely fine. So I have the first measurement, which was 105/56, which is even on the low side, not the high side. And it's very good to be on the low side.
Okay. So let's talk about those numbers. Let's break it down. So can I take this off now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm keen to understand a little bit more about those numbers and what they mean. You had talked a little bit about did you give a range as 120?
120/80, that's the typical normal blood pressure, but it's we don't give one figure, we always give a range.
And what is that range?
So the range, I would say that anything for the systolic blood pressure, anything.
The systolic is is the number.
The upper,
Okay,
the upper
number.
one, and then the lower one is the diastolic. Okay. So if we start with the systolic blood pressure, I said anything that below 148 or 149 is acceptable.
But is there like if I was say 60 over 20?
No,
No,
that's
so
we
is
will
there- is there
we'll
a
come to
lower
that
number?
thing. But we talk first about hypertension,
Yeah.
which is high blood pressure. So for the diabetes patient, we have to accept a little bit lower, because we know that for diabetes and hypertension, it causes more problem even if it is above 140 or 145. And for the lower blood pressure up to 89, I will accept it. But once it's above 89, if it goes to 90 or above, that's as well high diastolic blood pressure.
Wait, so what was my reading again? I really want to understand.
105 over 65, and now we got even lower than that.
So 105 over 65.
65.
But you're saying if it goes even up to 140,
I will accept that.
that is for the you call it the systolic range?
Systolic, yeah,
The upper number.
Yeah,
okay,
the
so if it
systolic.
goes up to 140,
Yeah.
and that it can also get to 8, did you say 80?
No,
90.
90.
90.
Yeah.
So like 140 to 90.
Exactly.
But what is the ideal number there? The one that,
There's no ideal number. Everybody, it depends on your body. If you are tall and thin, your blood pressure will always be lower than if you are short and fat. So for the fat people, and for the short people, they have higher pressure compared to the tall people and the thin people.
okay. So let's talk about the lower number.
So for the lower blood pressure, actually, it is not a disease.
Okay.
Because you can have low blood pressure without any symptoms. You don't need any treatment for that.
So can this number 65 that's here on mine, can it go as low as 15?
You're talking about diastolic pressure or systolic?
We're still in the upper number.
Yeah, the upper number
Okay,
is
got
so
it.
completely different. The systolic is the upper number, the diastolic is the lower number.
Okay.
So the diastolic number can go down even to 50 or 45
Okay.
without any problem.
Yeah.
But the upper number, if it goes below 90, it's called low blood pressure
Oh, okay.
or hypotension.
Okay. So not
So-
hypertension, hypotension.
Hypotension, which is the reverse, which is low blood pressure.
Okay. So what does this? So let's talk about the lower number, and then we'll talk a little bit more about high blood pressure
Okay,
versus low
yeah.
blood pressure. So what's that range supposed to be for the lower number?
Anything above 90 is fine. Below 90, we start to say that this is low blood pressure.
Oh, no. For the
For the diastolic.
Diastolic,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So for the diastolic number, we talk mostly about high level.
Yeah.
The low level, we can have a little bit lax. We can accept any value,
Okay.
but it doesn't go below 45.
Okay. But it can go as high as
It can go as high as 89.
89.
Yeah.
89. Okay. Got it. Whoa, these are so many figures to try and remember. So
Yeah.
let's talk about high blood pressure versus low blood pressure.
Blood
That's
pressure.
hypertension versus hypotension.
Right.
You said there are no symptoms for both high blood and low blood pressure?
And low blood pressure can sometimes give symptoms, but most
Oh,
of the
low,
time
okay.
they don't have symptoms. The low blood pressure.
Okay.
It all depends on the low blood pressure. You imagine that there is a pump, which is the heart,
Yeah.
and it's pumping blood to the brain. So, and if we stand up, for example, in a long queue and it's a hot weather and you are thirsty, you didn't drink very well, so the blood pressure will go down and it will give symptoms. You will feel dizzy, you will feel tired, and even some people might faint. So this is symptomatic low blood pressure. Sometimes we can treat them, we can give some tablets to increase the blood pressure if it's coming regularly. I have a lot of patients that actually they can't stand in a queue.
They can't stand in a
No,
queue.
they can't tolerate it to stand in a queue for a long time because they have a lot of mechanism which happens normally in the body. For example, when we stand up and the blood pressure will go down because of hydrostatic or hydraulic laws. So it will go with the gravity, the blood will go down a little bit. It will not reach the brain in a proper volume. And then what happened at that time? So the heart gets a reflex from the brain and then it starts to pump a little bit quicker and even forcible to raise the blood pressure. So that's the first mechanism. The second mechanism, it's in the legs, that it gives muscle of the legs impulses to start to contract, to pump the blood from the legs back to the heart, back to the brain. And it will prevent us from being to faint or to have low blood pressure. So human being, we are the only human being, the only animal of the earth that have that reflex. If you look at a dog, if you make the dog walk on the two legs behind and they don't have this reflex, they might faint if they stand for a long time because they don't have the same mechanism that we human beings have. Because all these things, it will defend us, it will protect us against fainting.
Okay, so low blood pressure generally, we don't need to be scared about. Hypertension, that's high blood pressure.
That's the worst.
If someone does have high blood pressure, what are some of the ways that it can manifest in their lives?
As I said, it doesn't have symptoms, and that's what makes it difficult to go to the doctor. So the only thing that when you come to, like for example, the school nurse, if he will have to measure the blood pressure on like a campaign for all children coming to school. When you start a new job, you go to a medical examination, so they will find out that your blood pressure is a little bit higher than normal.
But what I was even asking is, once you do have high blood pressure, what does that mean? That does it mean that you're definitely going to have a heart attack, that you will have to go, or how does it affect us?
The high blood pressure, that means that the blood vessel, because all the blood vessels in the body, they have a constant pressure, which, as I said, the systolic and the diastolic, and that if it is above a certain limit and you don't treat it and you leave it for years, then that pressure, it will start the same like if you are blowing in the balloon, any balloon. If you manage to put like 100 cc air and then suddenly you will put 200 cc, so the balloon gets bigger and it gets, the wall of the balloon itself, it gets weaker and thinner, and that's exactly what happened in the blood vessel generally. But the high blood pressure always affected the small arteries, which goes to the heart, small and the medium-sized artery. So it is in the heart, in the brain, in the kidney, in the liver, in the small organs. So
those are the organs that would be affected. Your
Exactly.
brain, your heart, liver, kidney.
And kidneys.
And kidneys.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what happened that they become the high pressure, those organs are not used to have high blood pressure. If we start with the heart, so the heart gets bigger, so it's called enlargement of the heart. That's the first sign. We can see that on the chest X-ray. And then we do ultrasound of the heart, which is called echo. And that will show us that the wall of the heart itself, which is about normally 12 millimeter, it gets larger, becomes 14 or 15 or 16. And that's a big problem for the heart, because the heart can contract fine, but when they relax, it takes more time, and that can cause symptoms. And then this is the first complication of the heart. The same for the kidney. It started the kidney function with the high blood pressure. Actually, in the beginning, it started to work super normal. Like it will be working the same, like if you increase the voltage to the machine. It will start until it starts to deteriorate progressively until it goes into renal failure, that it doesn't do the work and you need dialysis.
Right. So Zabulon, in your campaign, when you've conducted a test, what are the results usually?
Actually, very many people have elevated blood pressure. It's not high, elevated, and then many other people have high blood pressure. He mentioned that normal blood pressure, falls below 120/80. So the 120 is when the heart pushes blood, and the 80 is when the heart relaxes to fill in. So push and relax, push and relax. So it picks the two numbers, pushing and relaxing. So now, anything above 120/80 is called elevated blood pressure. Even if it's 125/82, it's elevated. It's above the normal. But now it goes up to 140/90. And now anything above 140/90 becomes high blood pressure.
So do you think it's because of the time or the space in which you're conducting the test? So maybe they've walked to you, and so because that would cause elevated blood pressure.
Before we check blood pressure, of course, you have to rest for like 5 minutes.
So
okay, we don't do diagnosis, we create awareness. But again, when we get people with high blood pressure, from our checks, we send them to the clinics.
Have
to
you
have it verified.
have you gotten many people with high blood
Yes,
pressure?
very
Wow.
many. Actually, even these mamas in the markets that
Yeah.
you see, most of them, they have high blood pressure. Some of them were put on medication some time back, then they stopped taking the medications. And some have never had their blood pressures checked. So many people have high blood pressure.
Wow, that's scary. I want to know a little bit more about how to reverse it, if there's that option, and how we can change our lifestyle as well to prevent it from happening. All of that when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. So we've talked a lot about high blood pressure, the different ways it can affect your life. And now I would love to know how, well, let's start with the treatment options. How do we treat? If someone does come to your clinic and you realize that actually they do have high blood pressure, what's the first point?
Well, normally when I have such patient coming to my clinic for the first time, so I take a proper history from him, because there are a lot of other causes that we can actually treat, and then the blood pressure will disappear. So I always ask him about his diet. If he takes a lot of salt, for example, in the diet, because the salts will increase the blood pressure. Any salty food in excess, it will cause a problem with the blood pressure. Even if we treat it, the blood pressure will still go up and it will be resistant to treatment. There is other cause which is even very common as well, especially for men. When they sleep in the night, they have a snoring problem. And the snoring problem is one of the most common thing that can cause high blood pressure daytime.
What?
Because what happened that when they lie down flat and then they start, the tongue goes back and it stops, and then they start to have what's called apnea, sleep apnea. So it's the same like somebody is suffocating you, and that thing, it will make your blood pressure go up to the roof. And those are the people who are have obesity and they have short neck. So this is one of the common causes. And I remember I had a patient that I will never forget, and actually he has a typical sleep apnea syndrome. So we started with treating his high blood pressure, and they have a lot of symptoms at daytime. When they sit and look at the TV, they just fall in sleep, involuntary sleep. When they wake up in the morning, they don't feel that they have enough sleep, that they are so tired, they lose concentration, memory problem. And that guy, he actually was living a miserable life because he has to separate from his wife because of his snoring. He had an accident when he was driving with the car, a truck. But anyway, once we treated the apnea, the sleep apnea syndrome, his blood pressure went down and they have to stop all the medication. So those are simple cases that we have to detect before we start the blood pressure. The second challenge is we don't take only one blood pressure reading. We actually put the machine for 24 hours, and then the patient comes the day after and we analyze the blood pressure daytime and even when he sleep. And we see the difference, and we can detect if it goes up during sleep. That means that he is snoring or having bad dreams, and then we can solve that small problems. And if we see that the blood pressure actually is high only when he comes to the hospital, it's called white coat syndrome. Some people, when they come and see the doctor, they get scared.
So fear causes high blood pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because our blood pressure is not fixed at 120, 80. Yeah. So if, for example, if you go and you see like a snake going, so you will get the same reaction, and your blood pressure will go up very high and your heart start bounding.
I'd like to add something on the treatment options, at least for the common Mwananchi. Yes. Your heart is the pump. Your blood vessels are the pipes. So the options that are available for treating high blood pressure, either slow the pump, or they widen the pipes, or they reduce fluid volume. That is how they treat hypertension. Okay, you would say the other words that refer to them, but that is the way.
So, but how do you do that? How do you slow the
Yes, now there
pump?
are drugs that are specifically meant to slow the pump, like the beta blockers, they are called like that. Others widen the pipes, like the calcium channel blockers. Those are hard words. And then others like diuretics, it's very common. Those ones make you go to pee every time. When you have large volumes of fluid in an enclosed system,
Yeah.
that is pressure. That's how you create pressure.
Right.
Yes.
So, but are there ways to treat that don't involve medication?
Yeah.
Like, so what
Well,
are those
as I said,
examples?
that you change the lifestyle. You start to think a little bit about sport, about exercise, that you do like cardio program, at least walking 45 minutes a day for 4 to 5 days a week. That will make your blood vessels very liable and very elastic, so it can accommodate the high blood pressure without being stiff and making the blood pressure go up. So exercise is important. Diet, as I said, is important as
And
well.
with diet, let's pause there for a second. You said salt is
Salt,
an aggravator. What
yeah.
are the things that would reverse or slow down?
Salads, green vegetables,
Okay.
and less meat, less fat. All these things will help only not for the hypertension, but it will help even for other disease as well, like high cholesterol and all these things, because it's all connected at the end. But then after that, if I continue to, after taking the history and looking at the blood pressure over 24 hours, then I will choose which drug that we have to use for that particular patient. For example, I don't use beta blocker anymore. Well, in England, they came like an announcement from the GMC and from even NICE guidelines that beta blocker shouldn't be used as anti-hypertensive. They give very good effect in the first couple of months, and then the effect disappear completely after that. So it is not a blood pressure medication anymore. There's even a lot of doctors, they don't know that here in Kenya.
Yeah.
But it's not used anymore, like atenolol or beta blocker. It's a very good drug, but it's used for other purpose, not the high blood pressure. But the calcium antagonist he mentioned is one of the best. It has no side effect at all. And there is a angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, what's called ACE inhibitor. Those are the drugs that works actually on the kidney, and it will prevent all the mechanism which happens in the body to raise the blood pressure. And after all these things, there is even non-medical treatment that we don't do it in Kenya at the moment, and it was very widespread in England and in Europe, that we actually go into the renal artery from inside, and we give radiofrequent waves to a certain area in the artery itself. And we found that by doing that, the mechanism of high blood pressure, it starts to disintegrate and the blood pressure goes back to normal. So by doing that, we can actually reduce the blood pressure by 15. Unfortunately, there's different opinion about the study, but it's coming back again.
So I'm curious, once you have high blood pressure, is it likely that you will have it again? Is it one of those things where once you have it, you're more likely to get
something
it again?
that you might even live with the rest of the life if you don't change your lifestyle?
Okay.
So you have to, it's not a disease that it will disappear in 3 months or 2 months.
So how long would it take to
Ages.
normalize?
Because unfortunately we get those patients late in the course, so they come already with complication. So we have to treat the complication. We have to lower the blood pressure vigorously to treat those complications of happening.
Wow. Have you measured, I'm curious, Zablon, have you measured children's blood pressure?
No. I have not been focusing on
children. It's adults.
It's only adults.
Yeah.
for
Do
now.
you have you had any children come into your practice? Maybe, say children under 18, people under 18 come into your practice with high blood pressure, with hypertension?
Well, from age of 16, we see it a lot as well.
What
but
are
it depends on
16-year-olds?
obesity. It depends on obesity, and it depends on other abnormalities as
Okay,
well.
okay.
But yes, hypertension is common in children as well.
Wow. How young would you say that children?
Well, I don't do pediatric now, but
Right.
when I did pediatric during my training, actually, we had a hypertension group or hypertensive clinic, and it was only for the kids. And the youngest child, I think he was 7 years old.
And they had hypertension?
They had high blood pressure
Wow.
with complication as well
Yeah.
at that time.
And is it for someone as young as 7, does it mean that it lasts with them throughout their lives, or is it easier to
Well,
reverse in
no, it's
children?
actually, it's even a little bit different than the adults, because there is a cause. Because there are causes, we didn't talk about that. There are two kinds of hypertension. There's one called primary hypertension, or secondary hypertension. So secondary, it means that there is another cause, another organ in the body which is not working and causing that problem.
Okay.
Hormones, a lot of hormone secretion from a tumor
Yeah.
or kidney problem, it can cause high blood pressure.
Yeah.
The parathyroid gland, so it's a lot of other causes. If we treat the cause, the high blood pressure disappear, but the complication wouldn't disappear. We have to treat the complication.
Yeah. Okay. So last question, how often should we check our blood pressure?
If you don't have any symptoms and you are very healthy,
Yeah.
you don't complain of anything, once a year, check up, it's enough.
Yeah. Oh, once a year.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
If,
And-
actually, if it's normal, if
it's
already
not, if you
normal.
don't have any
Now that there are
complications.
no symptoms
Yeah.
associated with it.
Yeah.
So if it's normal blood pressure, check it once a year.
Yeah.
And if it's not normal, if it's high blood pressure, doc,
How often?
how often?
If it's high blood pressure, then you have to have 24-hour blood pressure monitor, which you don't stay in the hospital. You just take the machine and then you can go on with life
Yeah.
or with your daily works,
Yeah.
and then we will measure that with the computer, and then we will look and analyze every minute or every hour of your blood pressure.
Wow.
And we will see if you're going to take medication or not.
So more regularly for people with high blood pressure,
yeah.
actually monitoring.
Yeah.
So that's why they should actually have such machines in their house to avoid getting complications
Yeah.
when it shoots and you cannot tell.
Yeah. One more question, actually. One more question before we wind up. If you had to have one of these machines at home, how much does it cost for you to be able to keep,
Machines are very affordable.
Yeah.
We have ones from 2,000 shillings
Okay.
to 10,000 to 15, depends
Yeah.
on how much you want to do with it.
Yeah.
So as low as 2,000 shillings,
Okay.
you can get a machine.
Okay.
And I'm actually pushing for
Yeah.
people to have these at their workplaces, in the
Yeah.
Kenyans, at the salons, along the road, in their homes, so that we end this burden.
Yeah.
That's what I'm pushing for.
Oh, bless you, Zabo, and for taking this upon yourself and wanting to see, Kenyans be able to do something and take ownership of their health. So thank you. And thank you so much,
Thank
Doctor.
you very much.
All right. Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. But for now, have a great rest of the day. And if you haven't yet already this year, then you might as well check your blood pressure this weekend, even now that it's World Heart Day. Might as well just do it. Have a great day, everybody, and see you tomorrow. Bye.